We've all been thinking, have we not, about taking back control and doing things for ourselves. At least I hope more and more of us are. As I go out and about on my journeys, I meet people and they say, do you know what, Richard? I've listened to some of the stuff you've said and many of the others, and you're right. I am beginning to take back control. I'm being more responsible for things. And many people are looking at growing their own food, which of course is a sensible solution to the fact that supermarkets naturally have, I say naturally as if that's a God-given right, but they do sell, of course, highly processed foods which do not contain as many health benefits as perhaps the foods could do because of the mass production techniques that they use. And so people have been looking at that. Of course, people are using veg boxes, which I'd be interested to know how many more people are actually using veg boxes and whether there is enough organic food out there for people if the demand is rising. But certainly it seems to me that the demand for allotments has gone up rather a lot, and the waiting list is back to being a very long time. In fact, a friend of mine, Sean, was telling me about a scheme that near him that have set up some new allotments where they already set up the allotment as a no-dig situation. So I may have to get him on the show to tell us a little bit about that, because that does sound like, you know, you turn up, you don't have to do any digging, you can just rent your little space and grow as much veg as you can, which of course going into the future is something that we're all going to be thinking about more and more. Besides which, it gets us outside, gets us exercising, gets us breathing, hopefully, relatively clean air, rather than being dependent on those trips to the supermarkets in which everything is all done for you. Now, I was very, very welcoming to an email that came in from one of my viewers, Jill, who sent me this. Now, this is a cutting from the, or an article, I should say, from the Guardian newspaper. And here it is. This is fascinating. Hull, the city of Hull, set to allow right to grow on unused council land in the UK. It's the first one. So city councillors have passed this motion to let community groups, charities and neighbourhoods cultivate fruit and veg on uncultivated land. Some of the council lands. Which is really exciting. So let's just have a quick look at some of this. It says community groups, charities, even small groups of neighbours could be able to cultivate fruit and veg on suitable council land in what campaigners say will provide healthy local food, boost mental health and revive neglected spaces. Now, I personally think that this is a brilliant idea. Whether the councils really had a clue that this was a good for... I mean, the reason I say that, the reason I started off that sentence is that it seems that most councils do not actually have the good of the neighbourhood in their remit. It seems that they're there to put in cameras, surveillance equipment, plant pots and charge huge amounts of money for the tax that they charge. But we'll talk about that in another video. However, this might be... I mean, this might be a way that councils can actually do something for the community by allowing people and small groups getting together and saying, look, there's a bit of wasteland. Can we not use that for a practical purpose of growing food? We did it in the Second World War, after all. We can do it again, particularly as people want and demand much healthier lifestyles that rather than eating stuff which is not so good for us. And it gets people outside, as I said, fresh air, etc. Now, if you were, say, the architect of, I don't know, the sort of an idea to get people into 15-minute cities, for example, instead of trying to put cameras in and stopping people from travelling and stuff, why not put more incentives for people to be in the environment that they enjoy or they live? And this could be one such thing. So, not that I am saying that these 15-minute cities are something that we actually need, although in essence, I suppose, you know, if you think back to the villages and the small towns, you did have everything within 15 minutes, and I would argue that we probably do, because that's how towns and villages evolve anyway. We tend not to think, well, we have to go 200 miles up here just to buy a bag of flour, or another 200 miles that way to get a tin of beans. Not saying that a tin of beans necessarily is terribly healthy, but what I'm saying is that generally people do live probably within 15 to 30 minutes of everything that they probably need. And those things that they don't need, perhaps once a year, then you don't mind making a bit of a journey. And hopefully things like having to go to the hospital, you need as fewer times as is possible. But that's just my opinion. Clearly, we need more people doing things like growing their own food. And if the council is able to facilitate and say, actually, we've got a lot of waste ground here. Of course, the ground does have to be quite clean. We don't want any of those brownfield sites that people have polluted. And it would be nice if it's just a little bit away from motorways or very fast dual carriageways where potential toxins and things would get into the food. But if it's safe, if it's not being used, then why not? I think these sort of schemes should be praised, and perhaps people can go to their councils and say, do you know what, these is great. We've formed a little group. We've noticed a bit of land over there. You're not using it. Let us have it for a couple of years and we'll do something with it. It might take some time to get the ground up to spec. Or, of course, you may say, well, do you know what? We'll use this ground for the first year and we will just make up our own fertiliser or our own compost. And then after that, you can do this sort of no-dig, which is the most easiest and simplest way, promoted by, of course, Charles Dowding. And if you've seen my video on that, put Charles Dowding and Richard Vobes into the YouTube search engine and it will come up. If I'm clever enough, I will even find it and put the link in the description along with this article in Hull. But I think these sort of initiatives we need to see much more of. It's a positive thing. It's people getting together. It's not always possible for all of us to go, do you know what, we love the countryside, we'd like to buy a piece of land, we'd like to grow our own food and get out there. Not everybody will want to, and not everybody, of course, is capable of doing that. You might just want to be there as part of a scheme in which you're helping. You might only have half an hour a day, and you might be, you might not want to do hard digging, you may not want to go back and water all the time, you may just want to be part of it. But whatever role it is that you do, whether that's making up food boxes and delivering them, then you want to get a little part of the proceeds, of course. And so I think this sort of community spirit is a brilliant idea. People can get together. You'll know your community. And the great thing about this is you don't need to be one of the awake people and know everything about what's going on in this world. You just need to be somebody who's enthusiastic about growing or being part of a community. And these things will just naturally develop. Conversation will come back. And especially if we could get the young people interested in growing and eating healthily, so much better. That would be marvellous. And you never know. There may even be some bits of land. I mean, the council used to have, council farms. I don't know if councils still have farms, whether they've sold them off to the private sector to try and earn a bit of money. But maybe there is some land in which people could possibly have some animals, some pigs and the odd cow or two and a few sheep. They would look fantastic in the community. It's lovely to have animals around. And then at the appropriate time, if they're looked after and cared for by perhaps a group of different people, and then, of course, you go and you slaughter the pig and the community can share in the proceeds. And you're all learning some of these old traditional techniques and methods that we used to have, which are very important to bring back into this new world that we're building. So I'll be interested in your thoughts on all of this, and also if you're prepared perhaps to write a letter, or if you've got the skills to be persuasive and you know ideas on how to be persuasive to get the council, or if you know how to identify council land that you could then approach the council and say. But of course it's not just the council that got these bits of land. Perhaps there is some land on private people's property that you can also persuade to say, look, you've got all this land, maybe we could have a little portion of it. It would be good, it would look good for you as acting in the community and the benefit of the society that we live in. Or perhaps it's a farmer who's got several fields, and if it stops a farmer from selling his land to a whole bunch of developers and putting on these horrible, nasty, grim-looking new builds, then that would be great. I mean, I personally, and this is just my own view, but I think it's an important view, I do not think that any farmland that has been utilised by families over generation should be permitted to be sold off to property developers and then have effectively a 15-minute city, an instant estate put on, which to me does look like a concentration of people living within a camp. You just don't see the razor wire going around it, of course, but maybe in the future with the cameras and the towers and everything else you will. But anyway, my thoughts are that if you build on farmland, if you build on this beautiful and productive farmland, you are preventing future generations, when things are different, from growing food and vegetables and fruit and all of that for future generations, as well as having animals and keeping the important things of our countryside, particularly in this country that I live in, to keeping them alive. We've seen so much development and urban sprawl that we really need to say enough is enough. We need to stop this ludicrous amount of immigration, and where we're bunging people up in hotels and delivering unusual crates to them, which may or may not have some very strange bits of equipment, which just seem to be weapons of war, rather than embracing people to live and be part of a community. And before I go, I'm indebted to the viewer who sent in this remarkable picture. Of course, I have no idea what it means, but I'm indebted to you for sending that in case you just need a box of wood, a lovely box of wood which can go into the ground, and it is there. But anyway, there we go. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back, of course, with more of my lovely, I say lovely, my monologues and interviews throughout the week. Thank you for watching.